Welcome to the fish tank.
Hey everybody, Fishman here, and welcome to another video. Those of you who have been following the channel for a little while know that I raise a bunch of guppies. And also, I have actually never witnessed a female guppy giving birth. I had the camera and I was down recording, and I thought I saw this young lady here doing the deed, but it turned out she was just having a dump. But watch as this other female goes by now. I'm going to slow it down. She was actually giving birth, and the sad thing is I was just looking at the wrong fish. I think I'll never actually get around to this. It's kind of bizarre considering there are at least 50 pregnant female guppies in this tank. This is the 7-foot mutt guppy tank I'm putting together, trying to get as many guppies as I can just to have a really good gene pool. They're starting to put some nice males out. I mean, this is a beautiful little guy. He's obviously not mature yet, but he's starting to color up nicely, and it's kind of cool to see some of the genetics that comes out of this. I'm not trying to control it at all. I just want to, have some nice strong guppies I can, put in clients' tanks. And this is just like the small section of this tank. It is 7 feet long, and each of those planter thingers you see there are only 3 inches. So this is just 1 foot section of this tank. So it is actually doing really quite well. Before we get to the decision for the filter today, I wanted to show you some of the filters I built and just show you how they're working, get a little quick update. And also I want to include the decision ones that you've already done. This is the 5-stage airlift to the trickle stack, tower, whatever you want to call it. And it's doing quite well. I like it. It's obviously completely impractical, but it's actually doing what it should do. Now this is the first filter that we put together from your decisions, and it is doing very well. I was not actually surprised at all, of course. There's a lot of water going through it, and as you can see, the leaves on the aluminum plant and on the pothos are vibrant and green, and it's doing really, really well. I don't expect it to ever actually not do really well. It's that style of filter. It's just easy. And if it will actually have a really good biological filtration for any given tank. And as you can see, it's just on here because it's the only tank I have large enough to even warrant a filter of this capacity. One of the things I'm going to do differently with it as time progresses, I think I'm going to add some moss into that tank, into the chamber up there, and then add some scuds and probably some cherry shrimp, just to give it a bit more ecosystem, just to keep it as interesting as possible. Now, last week I divided up the high humidity planter filter. I just wanted to show you it's actually both plants. I'll show you the other one in a few seconds. Both are doing really quite well, and I didn't again expect them to do otherwise. But sometimes when you do a big division like this, you could end up with some dieback. But all I see is new leaves, and even the old leaves that were a little bit black because they were up against the other acrylic, they're also doing fine. Now this is the second one we made. This one actually I really like. The other one's very practical. This one not so much, but the drums are rolling nicely. They're rolling at different speeds. They roll well. There's a bit of shifting around. You can see one of the axles is a little off. But all I have to do is every few days just have a look at it and then just push it back into place. It's actually not any big deal. If I decide to keep this running really long term, I'll just put some Delrin end caps on those, and then it'll stay in place and be fine. But I want to see how well it's going to, whether it's going to gum up or whatever. But you can see by the spray that's coming down there, it's got a nice, broad, even flow, which is really kind of cool. Now this is the tank that I took all those plants out of, and it is actually doing really kind of nice too. It's nothing's changed. You can, except maybe if you look at the Anubias in there, the leaves are actually starting to color up better because, well, they're not being completely, totally overshadowed by Java Fern. But they're also doing really quite nice, and that is cool too. So those are just some quick updates, mostly because I didn't really have much in the way of material, because this was a poor decision. Not so much for a suspension filter, but making it a decision process where you guys help me pick out. Because there aren't really that many decisions. I mean, there are, but once you've chosen a route, and like in this particular case, going with sand, there are very specific types of flow patterns that you can work with, and I can't just say, oh, here, try this, because it might not work. So I have to make all those choices and test stuff out. So I have to go down to a smaller diameter, as you see here, and that way, I mean, if it was K1, the K1, they're more buoyant, so you could end up with, you know, a more spread out environment. But with sand, it has to be more compact, so that's the thinner tube. So what we're going to do here is we're going to decide between, obviously it's going to be sand because you guys for the majority wanted that, but there's only one decision left that I can leave up to you guys, and that is whether it's going to be a hob, which means hang on the back and just a standard filtration system, or we could have this in an aquarium as an internal filter. And then if we do it as an internal filter, it leaves some interesting possibilities. Not that I'm trying to steer you in any particular direction, of course, but if it's an internal filter, I can use this. This is a Sculpey. It's oven bakeable terracotta. And as you remember, I put a quick Pleco Cave to test it out a little while ago, and it's been in here ever since, and I feed tons to this tank, as you can tell by how dirty it is, because I raise lots of baby plecos, and there's tons of snails in there, there's tons of shrimp in there, and it is probably the harshest environment I have in any of my aquariums, and let's just see how well it's done. So I just pulled it out. I'm going to throw it back in that tank as well, by the way, just when it's done here. And I thought maybe it would get brittle. I thought maybe the plecos might chew a little bit off of it, but it still retains a little bit of flexibility, and most importantly, no material at all comes off of this. It is solid still, which is nice. I mean, scratching it here with my nail, and as you can see, it doesn't do anything to it at all. I'm actually really quite pleased with this as a material. So it's passed the test. I mean, it's fine for anything that I would want to do for an aquarium. Which brings us to our current build. If we decide to have this as an internal build, so instead of being outside as a hob, which will just be a clear cylinder, I should stop using the word just, because it is really beginning to sound like I'm steering you in a direction. Either way you wish to go is fine. If it's on the outside as a hob, it'll be a clear cylinder, water will come in, it'll suspend obviously the sand, and it'll go back into the aquarium, and it'll do its job, and that's perfectly fine. If it's inside the tank, obviously it's going to be relatively unsightly because there's going to be a pump, and there's going to be the tube and sand and all that sort of stuff. What we could do instead, because I meant to make some filter hides anyway, we can do a slightly different version of that. I could have the water come in the back of that tall pipe, and then use and have that hidden by the parts of Sculpey that I'm going to put on the tube. The tube is going to be kind of nestled inside that, and it can look like a volcano, it can look like a tangle of roots, it can look like whatever you like. Suggestions on that front is also quite interesting. As a volcano, because I only have white sand, it would have, to make it look a little more like it, I have to put a red light on it. I don't have a red light, but at least to set it up, we can make it look interesting. And also as a tangle of roots or whatever, again, you'll still see the sand percolating in there, and all the other materials of it that will be hidden. So it will look interesting, and maybe sort of detract at least from the fact you have a filter in your aquarium. But anyway, that's all for you guys to decide. So those are your two decisions. Outside hob, inside either it could just be a plain filter. It doesn't have to be fancy with Sculpey. I mean, I can use that later on, as I certainly want to make some for some clients, because I want to put in some box filters and see how that all works. So there are lots of chances for me to use this material here. So let me know what you think below for all that. And as always, if you like this style of video, please like and or subscribe. And always leave lots of comments. I really enjoy them. And everyone stay healthy and away from a stupid virus. And I will see you in the next video. And bye for now.